So one day I just got mad as shit and got on the phone with him and just was like, let him have it. Just like, yo, hey, Dad, look, man, I love you. I understand that you didn't have a pop, so you don't understand this whole son-dad thing. But I said, I'm going to stop calling you Dad if you don't start acting like a dad.
What day is it?
Uh-oh, 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 guess what day it is?
Hump Day.
It's Hump Day.
Fatherhood. Fathers are that thing where nobody truly appreciates dads, but underneath the surface, all of us have issues with our father. Do you think it's too late to have a dad once you've already grown up? Like, let's say you didn't grow up with your father or your mother, right? And you grow up to your adult years. Do you think that you can still have that child-parent relationship that you could have had back then? Do you feel like you can develop that when you're an adult? If you would have asked me that question a while ago, I probably would have said no, right? See, me, I didn't grow up with my father. And my mom, later on down the line, met a very nice man. And this man later on became my stepdad. And then after he and I started bonding a little bit more, I said, you know what? This nigga didn't put in his time. He didn't put in his time. This man has put in work. I'm going to call him Dad. You know what I'm saying? My dad's birthday was a couple weeks ago, right? And it's funny because he and I did some things that we never even did before. He and I, we went to the gun range, right? We went to the gun range and, shot some guns. Virginia's a very big gun state. And my pops is a very laid-back guy. Now, his father passed away when he was very, very young. So he was never fathered. So even though he was in my life, my mother is the one that actually raised him. My dad would be there. He'll do his thing. He'll play with me. He was kind of like that backup coach. You know what I'm saying? If my mom was the head coach, he was the backup coach. He wasn't really a man of many words, but if you needed him to come out at 2 a.m. to pick you up, he would do it. No questions asked. When I was a kid, I kind of got used to just being my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I got used to not having a man checking after me, not having a man give me advice. I just really got used to just, being my mom. I realized that sometimes when you're a kid, right, you realize that you're never going to have that relationship with your parent the way that you feel like you should. You know what I mean? Like, as a kid, I just felt like I just understood that. And then as I got older, I ended up meeting my actual father, who I now have a relationship with. And then I also started to look at the relationship that I had with my stepdad, AKA my pops, right? I lived in LA for about 4.5 years, right? Some of the best years of my life, but also some of the most challenging years of my life. It was out there that I really, really kind of stepped into a different level of manhood. And I would ask myself, why is it that I'm going through all this wild shit every day and my dad don't call me to check on me, to ask me how I'm doing? Hey, son, you need some advice? Any of that shit. So one day I just got mad as shit and got on the phone with him and just was like, let him have it. Just like, yo, hey, Dad, look, man, I love you. I understand that you didn't have a pop, so you don't understand this whole son-dad thing. But I said, I'm going to stop calling you Dad if you don't start acting like a dad. I said, because just because I'm an adult doesn't mean that I still don't need guidance or would appreciate guidance. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm a grown-ass person, right? We all are grown. However, just because you're grown don't mean you don't need your parents. Because your parents have been through what you've been through. And if they haven't, well, at least maybe they can give you some type of perspective. You know what I mean? And I realized that I had to ask myself, am I either going to be one of these guys who just don't have any type of father figure in his life at all? Not because he doesn't have dads that want to be there for him, but because a lot of us just tend to shut that door and just never open it. So for his birthday, when he asked me to go to the gun range with him, I said, you know what? Okay, let's go to the gun range. When we went to the gun range, yo, man, we had one of the best times of our life. You know what I mean? Straight up. And, he taught me some things about guns that I wasn't privy to. And we were just having a good time. And I realized that I said, wow, I think I was wrong. I said, I think that I could definitely have a relationship with my pops, with both of them, actually, if I'm willing to open up and if they are willing to do their part to be fathers. You see, when I was in LA, I was going through all kind of man shit, right? Rent, bills, managing your books, the car breakdown, so you got to jump it, changing a tire, all these man things that if you're a young boy growing into a man and you don't have somebody to teach you these things, then you grow up one day, and when you're in a relationship with a woman that you really love, you got to understand that relationship is going to be tested. So she's going to have you do man things that either she saw her father do or she just knows men do. I was in a situation where I was in a relationship that I loved, but I didn't know how to be the man that she wanted me to be, merely because I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I didn't know a certain thing about cars. I didn't know certain things about this and that fathers usually teach their sons. So this was what really, really got me pissed off at my dad. I was just like, yo, man, like, what's up? When we had our conversation, he was so honest with me. He was just like, man, it's not that I don't want to do those things. It's just I don't know how to. You know what I mean? And where he came from, once you become 18, you're a grown man, you live your life how you want to. So I had to kind of like talk to him and say, hey, man, if we're both alive, then that means we both have a relationship. I said, I'm not into titles. So if we're going to be father and son, we need to really build on our relationship. You know what I mean? And I realized that the relationship couldn't really build if, one, he wasn't willing to pour into me, and I wasn't willing to receive his wisdom, or at least develop a friendship. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us really want to have a friendship with our parents. You know what I mean? A lot of us really are kind of disappointed and depressed and don't like some of the past and what has happened. But instead, we just sit and dwell on that, how our childhood didn't go the way we wanted to, or how we didn't have the relationship with our mom or our dad that we wanted to have or think we should have had back then. But you got to ask yourself, well, what are we doing about it now? So I asked myself, if I've never been fathered, where do I pull my father experience from? You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, that's the same thing with my pops. Where does he pull his experience from? He doesn't. He's just trying to figure it out like me. I had to give my dad grace, man. I had to give him grace, and I had to understand now that I'm a father that it's very difficult to raise a child when you feel like you wasn't completely raised in all the ways that you wanted to be raised. You know what I mean? But I'm still alive, and so is he. Both of my dads. And I realized that as long as my heart stays open to want to reciprocate and build a relationship with them, I think that's the first start to shit going better, to things being the way I want them to be, instead of sitting back saying, damn, why aren't these people who I think they should be? You know what I mean? Sometimes we just too hard on our parents and we don't realize that they're just people too. And when they had us, they didn't have everything figured out. They didn't. But as parents, you have to be willing to change and grow who you are. That's the kicker. See, my pops, he had to really listen to what I was saying and take it the right way, which I'm glad that he did, because all I was trying to tell him is, hey, bro, I love you. I want you to be more in my life, but I'm not going to beg your ass. I'm not going to beg you. You got a good son. You got somebody that love you. If you want to learn this whole son and father thing, well, we can learn it together. You know what I mean? Moral of this story, it's never too late to have a relationship with anybody you want to have a relationship with, even yourself, right? But specifically your parents. If you somebody who never really was fathered, but you got a dad out there who's still willing to grow with you, right? Hey, start small. Start out by hanging out, just doing something where you both just can sit down and enjoy, no pressure, right? If you don't really have the best relationship with your mom, sit down and talk about it. But specifically for those parents that don't have good relationships with your kids, stop thinking because we're all adults that we don't need y'all. Trust me, the world is so crazy right now that we've never seen anything like this before. And a lot of our parents don't necessarily know what we go through because the world is very different than how it was when they were young and they were our age, you know? So whatever we did in the past, we must forgive. We must forgive. Whatever our parents did or didn't do, it is what it is, right? It made us who we are. But we must always understand we can either be the change or we can complain about the change. Which one are you going to choose? If you've enjoyed this episode of Hump Day Romance and you want to show a little love, then feel free to Cash App $1 to the show. We appreciate the love. We're going to spread it around and make sure we keep these episodes going. If you have a parent that you want to work on your relationship with, or you've been in this situation before, put it down in the comment section and tell us about it, because your situation might help the next person. You know what I'm saying? I'm Top Rope Zeus. Live your dreams, not your reality.
Respect.
Get